I'm here with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the star of...
Excuse me, please start again. His hand was covering his
Oh, take two.
Okay.
I'm here with Arnold Schwarzenegger, the star of Conan the Barbarian, film released in a couple weeks here. Arnold, I'm curious about a story like this. If there's, you were born in Austria and raised there. Is there any kind of corollary? I mean, is there any Austrian fables that match Conan?
The only one that I can think of is a character by the name of Sigurd, which is a comic book character that I read a lot when I was a young kid.
Mm-hmm.
But that's as close as you can come. But I think the Conan character, of the way Robert E. Howard has written it and the way John Milius has done the screenplay on is a little bit different, because the character then becomes much more three-dimensional rather than just a character that slashes away with the sword and solves all his problems with the sword. In a movie, the character becomes very philosophical in the end, and you see that whole development of the character. So it's quite different the way the movie ended up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just I'm curious. You know, the setting is unreal. He's talking about a place that's outside of history and everything. Yet you can see the Viking influences in the costumes and the trips to the east. It doesn't seem to be an American setting or anything. I just wonder if there's an American mindset to it. That
Well, John Milius, who of course wrote also the screenplay, he's an authority on history.
Mm-hmm.
And also Ron Cobb, who designed all the sets. And so I think that's why you get this interesting flavor in the movie, which is, you know, where a lot of the time went into, is to do the research and also to portray it in the most authentic way as possible. And John Milius loves East, loves Japanese history and war history and all those things, and is a samurai fanatic himself. And so I think that's why you have the combinations of the Eastern flavor and the Western flavor.
Mm-hmm.
And
do you share any of these fascinations?
well, yeah. I mean, after I started reading the Conan books, I mean, I
Yeah.
started really getting fascinated with that, the way about the Hyperborean age and the Sumerians and this and that. It was, you know, and especially I was always very much intrigued by barbarian history in general, even in school. So I think it was nice to then go back to the books and start reading about barbarians, and about their lives and the purpose and the behavior and the whole idea of pagan time without religion, you know, this without morals and all those things. So it has so many elements in a movie, and the important thing as an actor, of course, is to do all the research and to read as much on it as you can. As a matter of fact, I even went as far as going to read about Genghis Khan and find out a little more about him, because the Conan character is pretty much like Genghis Khan. Even you know, the first statement when I say, you know, to crush your enemies,
Yeah.
see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation.
The
of
lamentations
the
of
women.
the women. Yeah.
So I mean, that kind of thing. I mean, all that. This is very Genghis Khan-like, and the whole upbringing of Conan is very much like Genghis Khan. You know, fighting adversity and adversity breeding character. That whole theme.
I'm just curious. At the theater last night, you hear the shouts of the kids, you know, and there's all this bloody battle going on, and you know, where these heroes, how these images became heroic. I assume Milius has his own theories about what makes you know, a pagan hero, a man from another age, such a heroic figure. Going back to your youth again, were you aware of the Conan books when you were younger?
No, I was not aware of it. The first time I became aware of the Conan character was when I was approached for the movie, and that's when I started doing my research on it and started reading.
That was 4 or 5 years ago.
It was 4 or 5 years ago, yeah. Exactly. But I think that it's simply the day the young people and people in general all over the world are idolizing heroes. And it doesn't matter if it is a futuristic hero, if it is you know, from Star Wars, or if it is Raiders of the Lost Ark, or if it is James Bond, or Superman, or Conan, that is a kind of prehistoric hero, you know, and maybe 12 or 15,000 years ago. Anything that is heroic, and any time you have that formula of where good destroys evil, and where the good guy is really ending up as the good guy, like in the case of Conan, you know, where he sits on the steps and and he could have, after he kills his enemy, he could use all these thousands of people to his advantage. He let them go. You know, that makes him really, and then he starts thinking about what Thulsa told him and all those things. So it makes him really a good man, a good human being. And so that's why he becomes a sympathetic character throughout the whole film, because you can see his innocence in the face. And that was, of course, the hard part to act. You know, it was easy, the physical stuff for me, you know, to hold a 10-pound sword and do the sword fighting or be run over by horses and all those things. That was kind of easy because I was well trained already. I mean, I've gone through pain in sports for 18 years. But the acting part, to make the character vulnerable, sympathetic, and kind of always question everything, you know. And even in the end ends up with more questions than he has answers for.
I don't know how many people know, you know, you've been described, you described yourself in some of the books as sort of a sickly child when you were younger, and took up, is that correct, to look at that?
The first year of my life I was always very sick, but not throughout my whole childhood. No. The first year I had almost every illness a child can have, but then I became, my whole family was very athletic, and my father was a police chief, and he always taught us discipline. And I think that had contributed a lot to my success. You know, learning about discipline in the early stage of my life, and also the whole idea of that you have to really fight for it and struggle in order to achieve something.
And
so that
pain.
made it kind of that made it kind of easier for me. And of course, I think the thing that really made me achieve my goals was basically just to come to this country, to come to America, because I couldn't have done it anywhere else. This is the country of opportunities, and this is the country that makes you able to, if you are willing to work hard, to make you achieve things. You know, so.
You're also reported saying that team sports had very little fascination for you, that and yet making a film is very much a team effort.
Yeah. I had to change my attitude a lot about that, because when I was young, I was a strong believer that you could not rely on anybody. And
you also said something about emotion, about how you had to temper emotion, that it wasn't, you had to watch when it would be inappropriate for certain events and things.
Right, yeah. Well, in sports, first of all, I liked always the individualistic kind of sports, where you do it on your own, where you just rely on one coach maybe, and that's it, but you don't rely on teammates to you know, get good in the sport. And so that's why I picked bodybuilding, or that's why bodybuilding appealed to me, or weightlifting and all those things. But then later on, when you know, when I won all the championships and then got into acting, I realized that you need to rely on a lot of people, because in order to be good in anything, you need the help. You know, if it is the makeup person or the director or assistant director, the lighting people or the camera operators, everybody's help is needed in order to make you perform well or look good on a screen. And so I had to do a lot of changing of attitude, of course, growing up also. And when you talk about emotions that you just, what you just asked me, there was another big change that had to occur in my personal beliefs, because as an athlete, you cannot get emotional about things. You cannot get involved too much emotionally into things, because it will eventually hurt you in the long run. You have to kind of make yourself cold and turn off, because anything could have an effect on you before the day or the week or the months before the competition. So you don't want to get thrown off. You put all this work into it, you want to win, and not a little thing make you throw this whole program off. Whereas in acting, you have to change that around, because in acting you have to open up your emotions. You have to let it come in order. You have to work with a person. Yeah, you have to work with a person. I have to play off, for instance, in Conan with Sandal Bergman, I have to play off her. I have to let her emotions come into me and then let it go out. And so there is an interesting change that had to happen. So, you know, it was not easy to go from bodybuilding to acting. I mean, in many levels it wasn't easy, you know, especially when you step out of one field being the best in the world and then give that up and let it go and then start somewhere on the beginning. And that's what I had to do, you know, not knowing what it was, you know, let's do a close-up Arnold, you know. I mean, it was like really like being on the beginning of the beginning in acting when I did Stay Hungry. But I think that after winning the Golden Globe Award in Stay Hungry, they gave me enough courage that I said, well, I have talent in that. I think that I should pursue that and really go after acting and learn it.
We've made a giant step with this film. You're scheduled to do what, 6 more? Is that or 5?
Well,
more
you know, it always depends on how well the first one does,
Yeah.
but I think that John Milius has intended to do 3 altogether, where he lets the first movie was of the growing up of the character, and then he becomes king maybe in a second, and so you know, he lets him go through a different adventure and experience and battles and war and all those things.
All right. Arnold Schwarzenegger, the star of Conan the Barbarian. Thank you, Arnold.
Thank you.
Pause, Dave.
Sorry if I ran over a bit.
It's okay. Okay, roll tape, please. Yeah, you
All
have
right.
to look at that. Okay, there you go. Rolling? Okay.
One of the advantages, I think, going into acting was that I had a lot of very helpful people in the first movie, you know, like Jeff Bridges and Sally Fields, that knew that I was a beginner in this field, and they were very willing to help and be very patient and explain to me the scenes and rehearse with me over and over again. And you know, I think that's contributed a lot to me winning then the Golden Globe Award, because I think if I wouldn't have had that help, I really would have been lost, basically. And that has been the case with Lonnie Anderson or with Jeff Bridges or Kirk Douglas or with anybody I've worked with. You know, I just tell them right on the beginning, listen, I need your help.
Yeah, so we need him to laugh with it. Tell him.
Yeah, I have a joke. Of course, the hard roars and the hard parts are when you have to bang Sandal Bergman on a screen, you know. 40 people are watching you, how big your weenie is.
That could be difficult.
Yeah. That's then a little bit harder.
Okay, stop tape. Thank you very much.
Are there any plans for an immediate sequel from this?